Hello, my name is Matthew Burke. I'm a student at Polytechnic School in Pasadena, California, and I'm doing in this talk is on and I'm doing a talk on the global impact of e-waste, specifically the impact of the dumping of e-waste in Albashobi, Ghana. Okay, so I did this for a program at Polytechnic called the Global Initiatives Program. So just like a bit about it. The goal of it is essentially to foster global citizenship, which involves like being aware of global issues. It involves that in service to provide the tools and experiences necessary to become a global citizen. The program I started in my freshman year, and it also included the Polytechnic Global Scholars Program, which I'm doing this as part of. Okay, so just like here's a bit I was required for it to have a blog. Just here's a bit of the blog that I was doing. It just required every month to make some posts. Here were some of the posts that I did. Like here's one, just for example, the most recent one which will be e-waste dump. And like each of them were on different global issue. I focused on environmental problems. Okay, so then about me, I've already covered this, but I'm a senior at the Global Scholars Program. I first became interested in the issue of global e-waste as a result of the Global Initiatives Program, which is part of the Global Scholars Program. I was part of a team prior to this. In my junior year, I was part of a team that presented to MIT last summer as the Launch's Global Finalist. We launched a prototype product that allows users to repair their cores and thus prevent the creation of e-waste. And also I went to France and I forget as part of the exchange program. So here's just a video about my stuff specifically. The product that we created that allowed you to repair your cord was called Cord Restored. So just here's a quick. That's ongoing right now is a project. It's called Cord Restored. It started when my cords frayed. Around the time I was also reading about in the news about how China was no longer taking our e-waste because of how harmful it was to their country, which kind of woke my eye up in a lot of ways to just how harmful something like disposed chargers are. Is there any easy way to fix the problem? And the answer I came out with was no. So then, and then after that, thinking maybe there's no existing solution, but maybe there's a way that I could sort of make things work. The closest thing that I found was this voting product that almost good in terms of material properties, but it was extremely toxic, which is not great. So we used some material science people, and I was just asking them, do you know if there's any way to make something that's like this, that's non-toxic, maybe doesn't need to be as strong? And the answer was yes. And they asked me look at fluorocarbons, and there are a lot of newer materials since then that have similar properties to CFCs, but are a lot less toxic, with the trade-off being that they can be very challenging to cast properly into the desired shape. I was looking on eBay to see can I get any of those chemicals, because I was looking around and I saw that there were some researchers that would auction off some of their surplus. Oftentimes I would get the wrong chemical, or I didn't even know what it was. So, and I realized that I really need to get stuff from an actual chemical supplier, not eBay. Not only is it like a technical solution, but it's something that has the potential to actually help solve a significant social problem. I feel that it's very much important to not only build things because they can be done, although oftentimes that is very much exciting, but probably one of the things that I've worked on that the most directly I can say, not only was it something that was interesting to do, but it's something that I feel that I accomplish something that is greater than just myself. Okay, so that's just covering just like a bit about about one of the first things that I really did with regard to environmental issue. And I think it ties in a lot with the problem that I really am, that this talk is really on, which is the issue of e-waste and the damage that it causes. So just here's just a bit more. This is just a short infographic that I did. Yeah, so now let's just have like a quick discussion. Let's just have like a quick discussion question you should all think about. Think about like how many electronic devices do you own, and like does your family own? How do you discard your electronics? Do you even know necessarily where they go? And like what role do companies play in like building electronics that oftentimes become obsolete quickly? And like how would potentially increasing the lifespan of electronics reduce e-waste? And then also where do your that when they send it to be recycled, where exactly do they go? You can put any of your answers if you have something, if you have an answer you want to share, just put it in the chat box. Okay, I'll just say like that. Just one answer for my. So often saying that like for like many families, like the average American household has like 5 to 10. Some have much more. Some have fewer. Have fewer. Of course, one of the major issues with how, as someone else mentioned, how they don't know where it goes. The answer, some of it gets recycled. The answer, as I'll sort of go into my talk, is that a lot of it ends up either outright put into the landfill, and what doesn't end up in the landfill a lot of it ends up just being shipped abroad, where then it just gets dumped, oftentimes without even the country that's receiving it permission. And then oftentimes will get burnt, or it'll end up in food supply or in rivers. So then there's something about how much electronics do we throw away. And the amount is like truly astonishing. Like the average American produces over 40 pounds per person per year of e-waste, and that's 7 million tons in total, most of which ends up in trash. And this e-waste includes items such as computer monitors, printers, laptops, cell phones, VCRs, and DVD players. Interesting thing about it is that many of these items do not strictly speaking have to be thrown away. Many of them are simply devices that are just old, are built to go obsolete, or could be fixed in theory, but nobody actually wants to fix them and instead throw them away and get the newest device. And then like our obsession with cutting edge technology results in an incredible amount of e-waste. We throw around $55 billion in e-waste annually, which is more than the gross domestic product of many countries. And although most of it can be recycled, only 20% of it actually is, despite the fact that these contain very high value recoverable materials such as gold. And this waste is not only created in the disposal of electronics, but also in its production. Just for example, producing a computer along with its monitor takes 1.5 tons of water, 48 pounds of chemicals, and 530 pounds of fossil fuels. And the amount of e-waste generated is compounding and expected to grow by 8% a year. Many states do have e-waste diversion programs, but these programs oftentimes are just that, diversion programs, in shipping e-waste abroad where it's no longer. Many of them ship them on cargo bunker ships or possibly developing countries as it's more economical, which is one of the leading contributors to pollution. And then countries such as China, Nigeria, Pakistan, Ghana receive tons of electronic waste from the U.S. every year, which oftentimes it's disguised as an electronic donation in order to bridge this divide, and it contains toxic materials such as lead, copper, and PVCs, which lead to birth defects, brain, heart, liver, and kidney and skeletal system damage, as well as nervous and reproductive system damage. And then by creating policy that do not account for the impact of the U.S. and other nations, we are adopting a bunker mentality. Our e-waste recycling programs divert attention away from the global impact of e-waste. These are all some pictures of what the result is of our diversion programs and what it actually looks like at many of the dumping sites. As you can see, are anything but environmentally friendly and pose a huge health hazard for the people living there. It also neglects the environmental impact of shipping waste overseas. The fuel that is used in bunker ships is waste oil. It is the same as asphalt and is so thick that when cold, it can be walked upon. In international waters, ship emissions are one of the least regulated parts of the global transportation system. One staggering statistic is that just 16 of the world's largest ships create as much lung-clogging sulfur pollution as all the cars in the world combined. Counterintuitively, the higher we set our local e-waste recycling targets, the greater the global environmental devastation. Because as we increase our quotas, it results in more e-waste being sent abroad, which then causes more pollution and more environmental destruction of other countries. And much of it isn't actually recyclable, as it's already said, gets sent abroad, and that which leads to dire health consequences. Are just like, here are some of the impacts of different ones, like selenium can cause selenosis, which can cause hair loss, nail bitterness, and numbness. Beryllium is well known to cause cancer and long-term poisoning, which can cause breathing problems, chest pain. Exposure to it can cause like exposure to mercury, can cause mercury poisoning. There are like a long list of health problems that can be caused by all of these, many of which are long-term and can't be easily treated. Other countries besides the US also contribute to e-waste as well. China leads the way with 7.2 million tons per year, while the US produces 6.3 million, Japan produces 2.1 million, India is 2.0 million, and Germany 1.9 million, trail behind. But when viewed in terms of per capita pollution, 9 of the top 10 e-waste producing countries are in Europe, and the outlier is the United States. In this devastates developing countries. This documentary, Kofi and Larchie, focuses on e-waste dump in Albashobi, Ghana.
This is Agbogbloshi, Sodom, and Gomorrah. This is waste. Today, first it feeds them, then it kills them.
I think if I could change Agbogbloshi, I would first of all change the perception people have about Agbogbloshi. I started a video project with Kofi and Latte because I think we can tell the stories better.
Okay, so now just like some more questions. How does this, just to post into this, just to think about and then post into the chat box, how does this movie trend make you feel about electronics consumerism and then electronics recycling? Did you realize that most electronic recycling is done by people in already highly toxic environments in developing countries? And what do you think about it? And then what are some of the negative impacts of e-waste, both locally and globally? I'll give everyone a minute to think about that. I'll just read one that Caitlin said, that she says that she thinks it's very powerful to see an instance in which the people in the community that's being affected by e-waste issue are being the ones portrayed protective, as opposed to an American filmmaker or something. I think that's definitely a really big issue. Is like in many cases, the reason why we overlook it is because the people that are affected by it don't have that much of a say, and when they do say something, they're oftentimes ignored. So now let's look at the Albashobi e-waste dump in Accra as a case study on the global network of e-waste recycling. Accra is the capital of Ghana, which is 173 square kilometer and has a population over 2 million, making it the country's most populous city. It's located along the Atlantic coast and has inland extension to the north, and it's a quite young city, with 56% of the population is under 24, which is primarily due to very rapid urbanization. The urbanization of Accra, combined with Western donations, led to Albashobi transforming from wetland into e-waste dump. In the 90s, newly available electricity led to increased demand for functional secondhand televisions and computers, and the rich nations used a legal loophole of classifying the garbage as donations to bridge the digital divide between developed and developing countries to get around the Basel Convention rules, making e-waste dumping illegal. Although these computers cost 1/10 of the price of the new one, 75% of these secondhand electronics sent to Africa could not actually be reused and ended up in a landfill, changing the landscape of Albashobi from a wetland into an e-waste dump. At the Albashobi e-waste dump, workers barely survive, just like bringing bringing it back to the point mentioned earlier, and just like in order to survive, many come from the Oshobee dump from the northern regions of Ghana to the neighboring countries, and then 80,000 Accra's poor subsist on the Oshobee dump, living on site or in the nearby slum, and then men, women, children, and animals coexist in this state. And then just like here from Abraham Dauda, who came to Accra from Niger 2 years ago. He collects used water sets and scrap metal, and he hopes to buy his own taxi one day. But just like when it rains, the pollution is so bad that he can barely breathe. And then because there's no regulatory oversight, workers are continuously exposed to toxic burning fumes. And just that because almost all of these devices contain toxic chemicals, which even if they're recyclable, it's so expensive to do so that it usually just ends up being illegally dumped. And then the wastes end up being burnt, which creating toxic fumes. And then the health conditions are very poor in Oshobee. As a result of this, 80% of children have dangerous levels of lead in their blood, and then inhabitants often suffer from chronic nausea, headaches, chest and respiratory problems. And these toxins are also found in soil and food samples as these chemicals stay in the food chain. And then the Basal Action Network found that dangerous levels of dioxins in polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs, and chicken eggs at Oshobee. And then also it also creates problems not just in Ghana, but also it creates huge national security risks in the United States, largely because of like the combination of both poverty and urbanization. Ghana is listed by the U.S. State Department as one of the top sources of cybercrime in the world, and it's filled with organized criminals who recover credit card information and private financial data from the computers of ordinary Americans. And then the U.S. government even dumps all electronics in Oshobee, many of which still contain classified government documents. And when they're dumped, there's a chance, and it has already happened before, where the secret data is uncovered and is sold to the highest bidder. So now for our community, for what can we do as a community? We should like think about how is our school community addressing the global issue of local e-waste? What are 3 personal steps that you could take to reduce e-waste pollution? And what is one community action we could take to reduce e-waste pollution? I'll give everyone a minute to think about that. Yeah, that's a really good point that both Rhoda and Ryan brought up about, first of all, for my grandmother, just about like the Bridge home and about homeless children supporting themselves by collecting recyclable items, and just about the hazards, and also from Ryan about what we can do about it by not buying new devices. I'll just paste them, and then from Sarah about minimizing the charging cords per family, and just in general being more mindful about the purchase of new electronics and then repairing what you already own. I think repairing things, and personally I think, is probably the most important thing that we can do. Definitely just to repair things. One potential challenge, as well as just from the industry side, is just to make things easier to actually repair, because oftentimes just stuff isn't built to be repaired. And just to know where our things go. Let's go on to the next. Let's wrap this up. Okay, so here's a quiz. Just true or false. True or false. First, true or false. There are laws in the state of California that make it difficult to repair used electronic goods, and then for number 2, yes, no, maybe, do the right to repair laws allow consumers to fix their used electronics or determined at the federal level. And then 3, And then 3, the EU introduced right-to-repair rules for phone tablets and laptops in 2015. 4, more than 100 million external power supplies are shipped in the United States each year, and the average American home has 5 to 10 external power supplies, and 5, true or false. A recent class action lawsuit against Apple claimed that the error message may be more insidious than cross wires. Plaintiff claims that in a November 2016 update, Apple forcibly rejected older iPhone chargers in order to force consumers to purchase new chargers or new phone at high prices. I'll give everyone just like a minute to think about it, then just like then post what your answers, or in the chat, or just think about it. Lucy?
Okay, I'm gonna say true.
The answer for that is indeed true. Okay, and thank you. Philip?
For number 2?
Yeah. What do you think about number 2?
I'll say yes, but I'm not sure.
The answer is no. It's determined at the state level. Let's go on to number. Let's go on to number 3.
Let's say true. I don't know.
It is false. They plan to introduce right to repair laws for phones, tablets, and laptops by 2021.
Ah, no, but it seems like they would care enough to actually have a right to repair, though.
Yeah. Thankfully they're starting. Thankfully they've started to, even if it's not yet in place. Just for the interest of time, I'll just go over them. For number 4, number 4 is false. More than 300 million external power supplies are shipped in the United States each year, and the average American home has 5 to 10 external power supplies, and 5 is true. A recent class action lawsuit against Apple claims that the error message may be more insidious than cross wires. And then here. Okay, so just for the future to think about, we are more globally aware now than ever before. We understand our interconnectedness. And 2, awareness that problem of e-waste is the first step. And 3, technology is continuously changing, and it's important to stay ahead of the changes and to address the problems that might happen as a result. And then just that our local community can make a difference. Thank you.